Hey everybody, this is Brittany here from Surfing Waves of Light, here to give a little update on what's been going on and then a quick channeling to close out the session. So if you watched my last video, I was on my way to Phillies Game 7. If you follow baseball or listen to the news, you will know that the Phillies did not win that game. And so definitely some lessons from that. Want to tell you all that on the way to the game, actually even before I went to the game, I had a busy day. I surfed all day, and the whole time I was in the water, internally I kept hearing Gurriela, Gurriela, and Gurriel is a player on the Arizona Diamondbacks, so that wasn't a great sign if I was reading the energy. Then, sitting in my living room saying goodbye to a friend who was leaving, getting ready to get picked up to go to the game. And I hear two loud bangs outside. Sounded like cars crashing. Walk outside, and I've been coming to this island my whole life. I've never seen a single accident. There's a car flipped on its side, a bright red car flipped on its side with a woman trapped inside. Nothing we could really do, but I think in my mind I was like, oh no, that doesn't mean anything. But I think deep down inside I was already feeling like, this may not go the way that at least my ego wanted, the personality Brit wanted. And then I got to the game, and there was so much traffic, and I was working on some stuff on my computer to finish up work, and I kind of got really car sick. And walking into the game, I just felt awful. And so thinking of the quantum entanglements that exist, I felt like, wow, if I feel this awful, I wonder which players on the team that are aspects of myself are feeling this way too. And so the game was good. We just, our offense couldn't get it going. And I felt sick pretty much the whole game until the very end. But I still was able to fully enjoy it, and I still really honored the oneness, and I think the guides are going to speak more on that, so I'm going to cut it off there. Then 2 days ago, I woke up and my face was swollen. This happened when I had poison ivy. Now I'm not so sure that my face swelling was poison ivy. Itchy ears and swollen eyes. You might not be able to see them as well right now, but I have been having some swollen face. First thing in the morning, you can really tell here, and I can feel it. My eyelids are just like heavy to lift up. So I'm having some sort of allergic reaction, or actually, I know it's not, physically, yes, it's that, but the guides are going to speak more on that. So I'm going to bring them through, and then anything they don't cover, they've already given me a few notes, which I'm going to read at the end to, I guess, summarize, but let's just see what the ARCTURIANS have to say about all that's been going on in my life, in the general energies, because I am just a reflection of everything else. So, all right, let's see what they have to say. Thanks for being here, everybody. Greetings, dear beings. We are the ARCTURIAN Council, and we are pleased to connect with you all today. This time in your perceptual realities is a time with the theme of going deep. Yes, we are blasting into this being's mind a vision of outer space, of going far, far out and far, far within to oneself, to the core of who each and every one of you are, so that as these energies continue to increase, you are standing in the knowingness of the aspect of God of which you are meant to represent, dear beings. You see that at your core, each and every one of you are pure unconditional love. And so the expression of that, though, is different for each and every one of you. As you are fully aware, you are all made up differently. You are all made up of different identities, different properties, different quantum layer innumeralities. We are not able to find the word that we mean, but we show this being a picture of dust, of particles, of smallness, of the smallness of who you are, which actually makes up the bigness of who you are. And so your creation, your core aspects, these are being activated now. And these aspects that are being activated are bringing up to the surface with them the parts of you that are not fully whole, the parts of you that are not fully complete. And this has been a message to this being that we have been giving her for quite a while now, that whether or not you are in a relationship with a partner or a family or a business or a job or a neighbor, at this time we are asking each and every one of you to come back in to yourselves and go deep within or deep into outer space. It is the same. For when you are going deep, it is always within yourself. For you are a reflection of the universe. The universe is the makeup of you. That is why we can channel through this being and bring topics through which can relate to many different users across this plane. You are not so different. And so the only thing we ask of you is to go within, to go deep, to go down, 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 down into the deepest parts of who you are, to ensure that you are whole and complete without any other beings, without any other things that are often needed on this plane. You see, 3D was full of magical potions and tricks in which you all required to live out the day-to-day life. And yet now, as you are evolving, 5D is so different from 3D. It is not so regimented as 3D. It is much more fluid. It works best when a being has the perception of fluidity and non-attachment. And so we ask you to honor your partnerships with your family, your friends, your relatives, your neighbors, all of those beings. But simultaneously, we ask that you embrace a level of fluidity, of flow. For 5D functions on flow. It really cannot occur without flow. And so that is the momentum we are asking you to practice. Now, flow, as we can see it from our perspective, is best lived out, is best worked through when a being is whole. And so for the past many years of each of your lives, there are beings that you have brought in to your vibration because there is an emptiness within you and an aspect within them that fills that emptiness. And now we are asking each and every one of you to come back to yourself, to spend more time alone, especially during this eclipsing season. Spend more time figuring out where are you leaning on others to fill a hole within yourself. Now, this does not mean that you all become good at everything. No. Some of you are going to exhibit strengths in places where others are exhibiting weaknesses. But what we mean by holes in this didactic verbalization is that you cannot have aspects of yourself that you cannot manage at all alone. So, for example, when this being was a young child, she watched endless amounts of scary television where people on this plane would go missing and be murdered. And so the result of that, it has been years and years and years of this being afraid to sleep alone. Now, she can do it, but it is often very hard for her. She also has grown up in a house that is full of people. And so at this time, we are asking this being to sleep alone more often so that she can get into a congruent phase with that. She is able to do it, but it comes with much stress. We're asking her to become more congruent around this topic. And this she has been doing. Her partner has been sleeping in a different place, and she has been sleeping here in her home. And so she is getting to see full on the false ideas and images that come when she is in this house by herself. And it has only been a few nights, and she is already finding herself able to sleep much better. This was not a big hole in her wholeness. We laugh as we see the irony of this situation, of this verbalization. But this was a place where she was a bit unsteady. If we looked at the grid of her energetic makeup, we would see that there was some glitches in this area that needed to be repaired. Now, there is nothing for her to fear, but she is still releasing some of these ideas from her mind because of things that she took in as a young child and through her teens and early 20s. This being has not watched scary television for about 8 years. And yet, when you intake things as a child, as a younger being, they become ingrained in the subconscious, and they become so normal to your 3D day-to-day life that often it can be hard to even know that they are there because they just seem normal. These fears that you all have, they just seem normal, and yet they are not. And so this is just one example of coming into wholeness. This being and her partner are coming into wholeness so that when they come back together, they are coming into wholeness separately so that when they come back together, they are matched yet again as two whole beings in partnership, as opposed to two-thirds of a being with lots of little breaks in their vortex, leaning on each other and crutching the places they are not. This awareness has come to them over the past few months and years, and now they are able to address it. One, because we are requiring them to, and two, because the energies out there are making it so uncomfortable to have holes in your energetic makeup that it is becoming intolerable to allow these to continue. And so we have set up some situations for this being and her partner, which has caused increased stress which has shown the places that they were not whole. And now they are working toward that as we are guiding them. And we have given them both this guidance, and this is quite cohesive for when you are in a partnership, such as a romantic relationship. Much times it can be difficult to shift something when only one partner is getting the guidance and the other is not. And yet, this was the perfect time. And since these two beings are both opening to listen, we were able to tell them. And so that is a gift that this partnership has that not everyone else is accustomed to. And yet, there are still ways to come into wholeness while being with others, whether in a living situation, you have kids per se, you cannot ask them to go live away from you for many nights or times, but know that the situations that are presenting in each and every one of your individual lives are going to be perfect for helping you to repair any holes of which will get in the way of your wholeness, WHOLENESS, and prevent you from fully stepping into flow. For it is in flow that we can be the best teachers, that we can give guidance that you can be sure is not of the mind. When many of you are in the thinking mind, it can be quite difficult for you to know if you thought something up or if guidance came from us, because you all have many thoughts flooding your brains at different times. But when in flow and you meet a person or you have a synchronicity, you can be so sure that it is us. And that level of surety comes when you are in the flow and in the fluidity. The fluidity is how 5D works. It is not regimented. It is not militaristic the way your society currently is. It is much more like the ocean. It comes in and comes out, and there will still be ups and there will still be downs, like the tide coming high to low, but yet there will be much more of a grace to these highs and lows, whereas 3D tends to be a lot of hard hitting bottoms with bangs and strong pointed tops, highs. And so this flow, this fluidity would be the expression of 5D earth reality, as even in the 5D there is still can be upset. There still is expression of low frequency ideas and thoughts and beliefs, for you are not rid of them, but yet it is a much more softer, gentler, and beautiful way to move through these situations. Not so rigid, not so hard. And that is something that we are moving you all towards now. Many of you are already experiencing some things through the flow of 5D. You are finding that situations that triggered you heavily years ago, you are able to move through in a more graceful way. And yet there are still some situations that are triggering you and bringing about that rigidness, that inflexibility that was ingrained in you through the programming that you each received going through your lifetimes here. And that is okay. Everything is okay. This is all perfectly playing out. So know that in your saddest moments, when your face is swelling or when your favorite team loses, this is not to worry about at all. In fact, you can go through these moments knowing and trusting that it is in the highest good, that it is for your benefit. And this is something we continue to tell this being. For she has had many interesting traumas, difficult situations come up in the past few months. One of these situations was the one where her beloved partner, Greg, stuck a branch through his foot, requiring him to go to the hospital for 7 days. Now, this situation was a bit confusing to this being, for the day before that, she had gone to her first Phillies game of the playoff season, had her first beer in a long time, and just truly enjoyed herself at this game. Danced, sang, had felt some level of highness that she has not felt in a long time. It was not because of the beer, dear beings. It was just that we invited her to utilize this magical substance on your plane to help her to more fully delve into that moment. And from her joy, it brought much joy to her family and friends and so on. And so we are for the use of magical spells and drinks and substances on this plane when they are for helping us to achieve what we are looking to achieve. And so she had this amazing time at the Phillies game, and the next day she had a surf lesson and ended up playing in the ocean with her friends on a small wave day, doing all sorts of different activities for hours in the sun with the waves and her friends. And just imagine really good vibes, a lot of really good vibes for almost 24 hours, feeling some of the best feelings this being has had in a long time, only to get into her car and receive the phone call that her boyfriend needed to be picked up in the middle of the woods because at the time he was saying he needed to go to urgent care, but her gut told her that that was not going to be the case. And so when she was in this very high frequency moments, this seemingly bad or low frequency event occurred. And yet, this was not bad at all. And even this being is starting to see that. This was the event that predecessed the current energies of taking time apart with her partner so that they can become more whole and complete. Her beloved partner literally has a hole in his foot, ironically enough, HOLE, hole in his foot. And so they were clearly able to see, this being more energetically and her beloved physically, that there were holes in their makeup that needed to be addressed. And so sometimes what we do here on the other side is we create, we invoke situations that are very uplifting, that bring your spirit super high, that when you meet the energy with love and compassion and excitement, we lift it up as high as we can. And from that high place, sometimes low frequency or bad things may happen. And yet it was the energy of upliftment. It was this being's willingness to meet us at this place that we were able to facilitate this other situation. Because when you are low and sad and down all the time, or even just in the middle, we know that your consciousnesses are very, very sensitive right now, especially those of you who have been opening up. And so when you are low or down, we do not look to bring heavy situations upon you, because we want you to be in the mindset of resilience. Now we know that an enlightened being is not brought down by any situation, and yet here you all are still working through the energies that you have been trained into. And many of you are trained into energies where there is not much resilience when you're already down. And this society does quite a good job of bringing you down, has very high expectations for what you need to do on a day-to-day just to have a place to live and to eat and some time with your family. And so we take these cultural contingencies into consideration when we facilitate lessons for you with the agreement of your higher self. So many times we will lift the frequency high up in order to bring you up, to bring your consciousness up, to help you to remember where you can be, so that when these more heavy situations come, you can know that this boulder, this tragedy, this trauma, this difficult situation is actually going to bring out the perfect amount of healing that will allow you to be back up into that energy more naturally without needing any other event to make that occur. So in the situation with this being, it was the Phillies game and her day at the beach with her friends and surfing and swimming that brought her up so high. And then this boulder of energy, of denseness, came down upon her. And yet these energies were already there. It's just that from her high frequency vibrating place, she said to us energetically, I want to vibrate higher. I am looking to move further on my journey into a higher frequency place. And so we said, okay, dear being, you are ready. You are showing us you are ready because you are meeting us where we are. And so we brought this heavy boulder down onto her energy and her beloved's energy, because that is where the work needed to be done. And so now they are continuing to go through this process, and yet they are finding more love and appreciation for each other than ever. Through this separation, through facing the aspects of themselves that they were leaning on each other for, they are becoming stronger and more whole. And through this wholeness, they are going to glide in 5D, feeling uplifted from needing nothing, from no exterior event, just from being whole. So know that when sometimes seemingly bad things happen after you are up in a good vibration, trust that this is a match, because time does not exist to us. So this density comes in to facilitate bringing you up again. And then your high place goes up yet again. Maybe before this being's highest exuberation of energy based on her makeup and frequencies was here. But now, since this boulder has dropped and she has taken actionable steps in her life to heal spiritually, now her high is up here. And this we talk about in terms of frequency and energy, and not so much in terms of states of consciousness that can be facilitated through drugs and alcohol and so on and so forth. So, dear beings, as you move through these times, just trust that whatever is happening is meant to happen. Trust that we have your back. Trust that we are in communication with your higher self at all times, and that we are not bringing upon you anything that is not meant for you. And know that every situation is specially handcrafted to bring all the elements you need. This being was asked to step away from the clinical sector of Western medicine, and this situation with her beloved has brought her back into the clinical realms, and she has now been able to hear our message a bit clearer that it is time for her to step back in to a clinical role as a nurse. When her father was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, she received an energy session from one of our light workers, a dear being who healed herself using a combination of traditional and alternative therapies. And in this session, we showed this being a bridge. It is one of the first images we showed her that came specifically from us, the ARCTURIANS. And this is now the energy which she is moving into. This boulder of density that fell down upon her and her beloved was absolutely essential to helping her to realize that it is time for her to step into her role as a bridge. A bridge has two sides. One side on the alternative sides of healing, including us, including energy and mental, spiritual, and emotional wellness. And the other side is the physicality as it is embodied through Western medicine. And so through having her business, her passion, which is us, which is her healing work, surfing waves of light, and then stepping into a more clinical role in the more 3D expression, the physical expression of healing as it is perceived by most in this world, she will now encompass all the energies like a triangle, like a bridge, to bring together the two aspects that are desperately needed to create full healing in this realm. Now, if you all were incarnated on a different realm, a higher frequency plane, all things could be healed through energy. Energy, unconditional love, and spiritual principles would be all that is needed. And yet, as you are transitioning out of this more physical plane, the plane that you have been focused and trained to only perceive physical in, it is still a necessity to have the physical expression of healing. So, bridges are needed at this time. Many of you have swayed outside of the system, and some of you are going to be asked to stay far, far away from the system. And yet some of you are going to be the ones that bravely grab your torch and go back into the darkness, not so far that you are lost or that your energy is drained, but you are going to go halfway so that the people that are stuck so far in the dungeons, in the dark, in the physicality, can see your light and head in that direction. You will be the ones that will help other beings to see their true north. That small, tiny light, as symbolized in our metaphor, that will be you in your expression of beingness just by existing. And this is what Dolores Cannon meant by the second wave of volunteers who are meant to come here. You are meant to just be who you are. You cannot not be who you are, because you are all so specifically made up that it feels so bad for you to be anything but unconditional love. And so we need some of you beings to be halfway, to meet these beings halfway, because in this ascension process, you are not leaving anyone behind, because you would never leave an aspect of you behind. And so it is that simple, dear beings. There is no split. There is no separation that is occurring here. Thus, it is the opposite. Though we do use separation to encourage you to come back together, as with this being and her beloved, as with the two seeming sides of the COVID vaccine, the debate of the medical injections debate that recently occurred. Separation is only a tool to help you realize that you never feel whole without yourself. And so this process now is all about wholeness. 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 When you are whole in your individuality, you would never want for separation. Separation only occurs when a being that is within your realm is triggering something within you that you wish to push away. There is always a balance. There is always a middle ground. There is always a median point. And we are now, after educating you on the other side of things, we are now asking you to slowly, with your discernment, with your spirituality, with your guidance, fully embodied, come back just a bit to meet some of these other aspects halfway, because they are in need of you. There are so many beings on this planet that are still lost and are still in need of someone to tell them that they know and understand their experience, and help them to understand how to get to the place where you all are, where you are still in the world and yet listening to your guidance, where you are still fulfilling the roles that need to be accomplished, the roles you've taken on as mothers, as workers, as fathers, as children, as whatever you've been called to do. But now, can you take that role and can you make it to a place where it is more reachable to beings who are much more fearful than you? This is something we see as important at this time. As we experience the world through this being's eyes and the other Arcturian guiders that have been working with us through these past years and lifetimes, truly, we see that there is a sect of beings that just need a light to show them the path, that they are ready. They are so over the fear. They are so afraid that their level of fear is opening them up to us. They're less afraid of us now than they are of these systems, because they see that these systems do not serve them, and yet they do not know how to escape. So we ask you to be the light bearers, to be the light holders, following your guidance on what that looks like, and using this being as an example as she is going through her realm. This being never thought that she would ever step foot in a clinical setting again, and yet here we are asking her to work with the dying, to work with the beings who are being ready to pass on, and there is much healing that she will be able to do for herself and for others by holding a role of transitioning people into a different reality. And each and every one of you are being called at this time to do something, to be something that is approachable. Approachable. That is the word we'd like to use today. And it is a word we have brought to this being for many years. She was surfing a few years ago, and the word approach a pal came into her thought processes, and she thought, well, this is a bizarre thought because I've never thought this before. Approach a pal. And what an approach a pal was to her through our imaging, as we gave her the definition with the word, was that when someone goes to a party and they don't really know anyone, but they see someone they know or at least recognize, and that person feels approachable, then that being would be an approach a pal. So we are asking you to all become approach a pals for beings who are scared, who are in the 3D, who are in the density, not going to them saying, let me channel my guides for you. No, going to them as normal human beings as you were trained initially and saying, I understand your experience. How can I intuitively know the best thing to say that will not frighten these beings, but allow them their own opening, allow them their own ability to connect with us through things that are manageable, like synchronicities, like repeating numbers, like feeling love. These are all normal, tangible things that we're taught in the physical realities, and these are the steps that are needed for many of these beings. So we ask you all to think about how you can make yourself more approachable, more of an approach-a-pal, and what that might mean for any issues or energies that are coming up within you. For you are a resource for all those around you. And we know that so many of you live in places where most of the beings around you are not as in tune with guidance, with love, with energies as you are. And this was with purpose. If you were all meant to crowd in one area, then all the spiritual people would be born in Spiritville, and that would be that. And yet, the current circumstances most of you find yourself in is that you are of a few members of a bigger culture community that are spiritually inclined, that are aware of the other dimensions, that are aware that life and death are not summarized in heaven and hell and other traditional concepts as they were taught. So continue to be yourselves and make yourselves reachable and approachable, for these beings will not be able to find this information without you. That is your purpose. That is why you are here. Do not fear that because you cannot close your eyes and channel as this being, or you are not able to see medical issues within a being with your eyes or colors in an aura, that you are not special. You have all been gifted with what you need to fulfill the purpose of where you are. And where you are may be as simple as going to get a coffee and speaking about how synchronicity works in your life. Fulfilling your role where you are may be as simple as going to a restaurant that is a fast food joint, which you would never think that Spirit would wish for you to go to. And yet, sometimes that is the role. This being recently did a channeling session with us where she asked where she's supposed to be and what she's supposed to be doing, as she has been feeling very lost. And what we told her, and this applies to many of you, is that there is nothing that you're supposed to be doing. Many of you are what we would call on-call spiritual helpers, or approach-a-pals, as we have communicated in this transmission. And so, because of the way that free will choice plays out in this realm, we often need beings who do not have traditional lives that can be available to meet another in a situation where we are called. Say, for example, someone who is not spiritual at all, or ever asks us for help, somehow has the inclination to ask for our help and says, "Dear beings, whoever is out there, if there's anything out there, please send me a sign." And then, because they are still very much ingrained in the 3D routines, we know that every single morning they go to a coffee shop or a fast food joint to get a breakfast sandwich. You may wake up, you may go to bed feeling like you're going to go for a long hike or meditate all morning or do something spiritual, as you have all had ideas of spirituality placed in your minds now. So you think, oh, the best thing for me to do is spiritual things. And yet you wake up in the morning with a hankering for a bacon, egg, and cheese from a local coffee joint. And you resist that urge, and you resist that urge, and you resist that urge. And yet, in those moments, that may be us calling you to go and meet this being and just be yourself. We will set up the situation within that coffee house. We will make it so you run into each other perfectly, and yet we just need you to go there. So know that many of you are on call because of how free will plays itself out. You could not have known what your role would be here. Your main role may be to have a flexible schedule. That is the main role of this being. She has strong guidance to not work a normal Monday through Friday 9-to-5 job. She can still work a job. It just cannot be one where she is required to be at work at certain hours, because she is on call in this area. And we can relate this to her because there are many nurses who are on call or per diem who go in when needed. And that's what you all are. You are as needed. You are all as needed helpers. And so when we call you to a coffee shop to get a breakfast sandwich, know that we will spiritually transmute any of the low frequency energies in that, because you are fulfilling your higher purpose by listening to us. And you are allowing us to work through you in those moments. And those are the moments where you can be yourself, where you can tell someone that you are helping the Phillies win by being grounded and centered and sending love, or that you know that your guides speak to you because you had 3 synchronicities that morning around getting a breakfast sandwich. And you just being yourself in that moment may be the tiny light that opens up that being to receiving the answer to the call they requested. Because you beings on earth often best respond to a physical response, and we know that. And yet we cannot respond physically because we are the non-physical. And so we rely so heavily on you who chose to incarnate and be our physical workers. And this does not always appear glamorous. This does not always look like being a featured channeler on a large YouTube channel, or healing the sick and the dead into coming back to life. Sometimes you can get an all-star spiritual expression just by going to your local coffee store and getting a breakfast sandwich because you felt inspired to. So trust your inspiration, continue working on your wholeness, and know that we are guiding you. Know that you are all so tapped and tuned in that even the bad moments are the facilitators of the good, because there is much to clear, and yet you are all moving through this clearing process like champions, like pros, and we could not do this without you. So we thank you for continuing to be incarnated in a planet of time and space, one that can be quite difficult for beings who are still connected to their non-spiritual selves to continue to be in, because you know at your deepest core that pure unconditional love is what you are. We are the Arcturian Council, and we are so pleased to connect with you, and we'll be speaking to you again at another time. Oh, right. Wow. They had a lot to say. So that was the Arcturian Council speaking about so much. 42 minutes. If you're still with us, then you are a champion. So I'm just going to read my final notes. Increasing our frequencies opens up portals for self-discovery and diving deep. Something bad that happens is actually for the good. Example, Greg's foot or my face being swollen. These are all helping me, I guess, to become more whole. Oh, swelling of the face. They didn't go into that, but they did answer that question before we even started. So the swelling of the face is around deep sadness. And this is about me, but maybe it will relate to you. Some beings, aka me, don't feel they deserve to process or receive love, especially after a tragedy. And I saw images of my dad's passing. They lock up into a frequency that keeps the sadness at bay and holds in their vibration a limping vibe that's underlying, waiting to flare up under stress. I think that's because I don't process the emotion. I go into I got to get through this mode. So sometimes they take on the role of healer, of telling everyone that everything's going to be okay and holding space for others, even though they need space for themselves. And they move on quickly, putting distractions or band-aids on the holes so that they don't have to truly process that emotion, aka me. But now, because the vibrations are uplifting, that sadness will be hard to ignore. So you have all been so trained to ignore and suppress the human emotions, and now we are helping you to release through these situations By lifting up the energy, it shakes the dirt below, and seemingly this is so simple and yet difficult for humans on this plane. So I've been holding some deep sadness around my dad's passing, and that has been physically manifesting through my eyes, because it's time to face that and not continue on with the limbing vibration. So that was a lot from the Arcturians, but they always have a lot to say. There's been a lot going on in my life, and I haven't made time to sit down and make these videos. But yeah, so I'm really glad that I can bring these concepts through, and I hope that you got something out of this. If there's anything in this video that you could relate to, or that is tangible, relating to these subjects, please put them in the comments below. Subscribe and share this video if you know anyone who would benefit from all these crazy things that I'm going through. I love you all so much, and I hope that you have the most blessed day ever. Love and light to you all, and I will speak to you again soon. Bye.